Okay, so welcome to today's online lecture organized by the Center of Buddhist Studies, University of Hong Kong, and sponsored by Tung Ling Kok Yuan Foundation. So on behalf of the Center of Buddhist Studies, its director, Professor Guan Xing, and faculty, staff, and students, let me welcome today's invited speaker, Dr. Jann Ronis, from USA and all the participants around the world. So today's lecture is very special, for it is on Buddhist digital humanities, and we are grateful to Dr. Jann Ronis for accepting our center's invitation. So Dr. Jann Ronis is the Executive Director of Digital Resource Center, Bdrc, a non-profit organization dedicated to seeking out, preserving, documenting, disseminating Buddhist literature. And he will be introducing to us Buddha, the Buddhist Digital Archives, and I suppose it's an extension of Bdrc. Dr. Ronis is a Buddhologist and also Tibetologist, and we can also call him a digital humanist. And he is a noted specialist in Asian religions, contemporary Asian culture, society, and historical research. And he received MA and PhD from the University of Virginia. And his doctoral research was on the history of the Tibetan kingdom of Bdrc in the 17th and 18th centuries, particularly the local Nyingma monasteries. So Dr. Ronis is in conversation with several languages, including classical and spoken Tibetan and Mandarin Chinese. And he's an experienced researcher, teacher, and administrator. For several years, he has taught Tibetan studies at the University of California, Berkeley. And prior to that, he was a Shinjo Ito postdoctoral researcher of the same university. And he was also a Fulbright researcher in Beijing and Kham. And he has worked with the Bdrc founder, Dr. Gene Smith, and also with Jeff Wallman, the executive director emeritus of Dbrc, particularly in developing Dbrc's metadata template that is in use. Please welcome Dr. Jann Ronis, Executive Director of Bdrc, Boston, USA, to speak on Indra's Net for Information Age, Buddhist Digital Resource Center's new online library. So, Dr. Ronis, now you can start.
Thank you, Professor Somaradne, for that kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you tonight my time, Sunday evening, and early Monday for you all. I've been to Hong Kong University once in December of 2018. I had a lovely time there with some new friends. I was hoping to get back sooner, but of course the pandemic has intervened and really interrupted a lot of international travel for all of us, East and West. But I hope that soon, maybe within a year, we can have a follow-up event in person together on campus. That's my aspiration. And of course, I know that Hong Kong is going through a particularly rough patch right now with the pandemic, and so my heart goes out to all of you. We've been through the same thing for a long time now. But it will pass, and we'll all get over it. So there's a limited amount of time and a lot to cover. If you don't mind, I'll just get started. I also want to thank Amy Yu, the administrator, who helped me plan this and organize it in so many ways, and I apologize to her for many emails that went unanswered for days and days, but she persisted, and now here we all are. I see that there's about 50 people watching online. Welcome. I wish we were together in person, or that at the least I could see all of your faces, but Zoom doesn't allow that. Don't worry, I know you're there, and I hope that there's a little something for each of you in today's talk. as Professor Somaratne stated, I'm the executive director of the Buddhist Digital Resource Center, and this year we launched our new online digital platform. I believe that both the organization and the new website are going to be relatively new to most of you attending today. So I'm going to take some time at the beginning to introduce the organization and then give a live demonstration of the new website with an emphasis on how to use it for Buddhist textual research. I'll try to wrap up my portion in less than an hour so that we have plenty of time for Q&A. I am going to be sharing my screen and sort of, engrossed in the PowerPoint and the website. So I'm probably not going to be looking at the chat room during my talk, but Professor Somaratne and Amy, if there are any pressing questions, please feel free to interrupt me. All right, and with that, let me begin sharing my screen. Slideshow. Okay, I believe that you all can see this now. If you can't, tell me. If not,
we can see.
Great. All right, so here's the home screen, Indra's net for the information age. So first, I'd like to introduce our organization, and of course, our organization would not exist without our founder, the legendary scholar E. Jean Smith, who, oh my gosh, sadly passed away in 2010. I'm really sorry. I don't know why it says 2021. He lived from 1936 to 2010. If only he had passed away just last year, we'd all be in much better shape. But no, sadly, he died a little over 11 years ago. E. Jean Smith. This is a picture from him, a picture of him from 2009, I believe, in New York City, towards the end of his life. Gives you a sense for his wisdom and smile and large presence. So Jean, we all called him Jean. He studied at the University of Washington for his undergraduate degree, and beginning in 1960 to 64. And at that time, the Sakya family, one branch of the aristocratic religious dynasty, the Sakya family from Western Tibet, several members of the family, higher ups from the family, had relocated to Seattle, Washington in 1959 or early 1960, just as Jean was arriving at the campus to study Asian studies, languages and culture and texts. He was interested initially in Sanskrit and Mongolian, but then when he saw that he had the opportunity to study with great learned masters who had come directly from Tibet and who had been trained in the old country, he turned his focus to Tibetan studies, which was a very, very young field internationally at the time. His main teacher and lama during these early years of his studies was the great Deshung Rinpoche, who was born in 1906 and had just impeccable training in the scholarship and meditation of all the forms of Tibetan Buddhism. Jean was able to study at his feet for 4 years, almost on a daily basis. In fact, Jean lived in the home of the Sakya family while he was studying at University of Washington. So he learned at the feet of the master, as they say, for an extended period of time and absorbed so much. At the time in Seattle and in the kind of personal possessions of Deshung Rinpoche, there were not very many Tibetan Buddhist texts. And so after 4 years of intensive study, Daishin Rinpoche ordered Jann to go traveling around to see what the libraries in Europe were like in terms of their Tibetan collections. And so Jann did that in 1962, in fact, and then in 1964 traveled to India, again, on the search for texts and for training under senior Tibetan masters. Initially, Jann's trip to India was intended to be brief, but in fact, he never returned, or at least he didn't go back to the States for a long, long time, over 30 years. He stayed initially in India from 1964 to 1987, and he had a long career while in New Delhi at the Library of Congress, New Delhi office. He began as a relatively entry-level clerk, but because of his great learning and skill at administration and diplomacy, he rose up the ranks and became the head of the entire New Delhi office there for a decade. This is Jann at one of his early homes that he lived in New Delhi while working for the Library of Congress. The man on the right in the plaid shirt is Mangaram, who was Jann's lifelong right-hand man, major domo, and also a huge source of support when it came to Jann's major efforts to collect and reprint Tibetan books. So while Jann was in India working for the Library of Congress, he was able to facilitate the reprinting of thousands of Tibetan books that had recently arrived in India with the newly enlarged Tibetan population there. The books that they brought with them were well suited to the Tibetan climate, but not to the Indian climate. And so Jann was very worried that these precious, irreplaceable Tibetan books would be damaged or lost forever in India. And so Jann used the technology of the day to reprint as many as he could find. And these reprints were instrumental in the rebuilding of monasteries and libraries in South Asia, and also in the population of the Tibetan collections at all the major research institutes in Europe, Japan, and North America. Jann loved Dalmatians. He gave a male and female pair of Dalmatians, in fact, to the king and queen of Bhutan, and so is credited with spreading the Dalmatian breed to that Himalayan kingdom. Sometimes he looked stern in his photos, but as you've seen from that other one, he was a very lovable man and had a sweet spot in his heart for his dogs. Jann eventually moved into a very large home in India with a large staff. He needed the large home and the staff because his house became sort of the headquarters for Tibetan studies in New Delhi. Many, many high lamas would stay with him while they were traveling, say, between Kathmandu and Bhutan, or from when they would travel from Sarnath to Nepal, and they would always go and visit Jann. He would open his home to them so that they could stay for as long as they needed. Both sides, the lamas and Jann, enjoyed these interactions because it gave them a chance to discuss text preservation and to share information about newly discovered works and newly reprinted works. Here's a picture of Jann with a large group of Tibetans and some Western followers. The man in the center of the photo is Dingo Khyentse Rinpoche, who was Jann's second major lama, second only to Daishin Rinpoche. He was the leader of the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism for a long time. And some of the junior lamas next to him have gone on to be great lamas in their own right. The lama's wife is the woman wearing the purple coat to the right of the picture. And then the young man in the lower right-hand corner is none other than Mathieu Ricard, who ordained shortly after this photo was taken in the mid-70s, and is now one of the most prominent Western teachers of Tibetan Buddhism. He was called the world's happiest man by Time magazine, I believe, or maybe Newsweek. But at any rate, he's a wonderful scholar and teacher. Some of you would know him. Jean's home was open not only to great lamas, but also to a whole generation of Western scholars. And we don't have many pictures from this time period, from inside Jean's home, but here's a lovely one of Jean with a very young Leonard van der Kijp, who is a full professor here at Harvard University and is a really influential person in China. He teaches regularly at Sichuan University, and himself is a mentor to a generation of PRC-based scholars. So there's a vintage photo of Jean and Leonard back in the old days. Long story short, Jean returned to the United States in 1997 after having been away for a long time, 35 years about. And he, of course, had great energy, and he still had the intention to do the best he could to preserve and disseminate freely Tibetan books, the Tibetan literary heritage. And so coming back to the United States in 1997, after having been living in the developing world for 30 years, he quickly learned about some of the newer technologies that he had not been so exposed to while living in India and Jakarta and Cairo. In particular, I'm thinking of the internet and digital scanning equipment. And so he started exploring the internet, digital photography, scanning equipment, and realized that it would be possible to do a whole second wave of textual preservation by using digital photographic equipment, digital cameras and scanning equipment, and also using the internet to help disseminate the digitized texts. And so in order to do that, he would need support, administrative support, financial support. And so in order to build that up, he founded the nonprofit Dbrc, Tibetan Buddhist Resource Center, in 1999. One of the co-founders was Professor van der Kijp, who we saw in an earlier photo. And so the initial mission of Dbrc was to digitize Jean's personal library of Tibetan books, which contained more than 10,000 volumes. So the plan was to digitize all of it, make it available through digital means, online and offline via disks and hard drives. And then additionally, not just to digitize the text, but to create an extensive and exhaustive and informative database with all of Jean's expert information about authors, places, texts, and history, cultural history of Tibet. And so he got started in 1999 on both fronts. He hired people to scan his texts, and Jean also worked with some digital humanists to create an online database that was tailor-made to all of the particularities of Tibetan knowledge, Tibetan book traditions, and also the ways that Tibetan history is recorded. Just to give you an example, as you know, in Tibetan Buddhism, a person is never seen in terms of just a single life snapshot. Rather, the great lamas are always understood in terms of a series of lifetimes. And no pre-existing databases were able to record those kinds of relationships across incarnations, and even including multiple simultaneous reincarnations. So Jann took his organic and yet systematic knowledge of Tibetan history and culture and religion and was able to translate it into the database language. And it's what has powered 25 years now of really important research in Buddhist studies. And so, as I mentioned before, Jann passed away in 2010 suddenly. It was unexpected, December 16th, 2010. But fortunately, his staff and his supporters decided that Jann's vision, must continue, and they kept the organization alive. I guess at this point, I should express my thanks to some of the early and longtime supporters of Bdrc. One of the first major supporters that allowed the organization to really get off the ground was the Reuben family, the founders and supporters of the Reuben Museum of Art in New York City. It is the premier museum of Himalayan art, certainly in North America, but probably in all of the West. Many of you, I imagine, have visited it before. It's in New York City. And then the Peter and Patricia Gruber Family Foundation have been longtime supporters of TBRC and now Bdrc since the earliest days. And then the Kensei Foundation. Bdrc, TBRC would be nowhere without the ongoing support of Dzongtsar Kensei Rinpoche and his fabulous philanthropic organization, the Kensei Foundation, which I know that many of you know. And then a little later, I'll be able to thank the Ho Family Foundation, Robert H. and Ho Family Foundation, for their recent support. All right, so Jann passed away in 2010, and then in the years immediately following his death, the organization continued on, and by about 2012, had completed the scanning of Jann's library of 10,000 volumes. It had also engaged in a few other scanning projects of Tibetan books. It continued to develop the website, making many innovations that previously had not been available for Buddhist studies. But then by 2014, 2015, some of the supporters and backers of the organization felt like perhaps the TBRC needed a little impetus to rethink what its mission was going to be in the period after Jann's life. And so in 2015, the organization held a seminar at UC Berkeley, and I happened to be teaching at UC Berkeley at the time. And so I was very surprised when one day I discovered that TBRC was going to be holding a private seminar with many illustrious scholars in order to debate and consider the future of TBRC. I didn't know at the time, because I wasn't working for it, I didn't know that the organization was perhaps going through a little bit of an identity crisis. But fortunately, the scholars who were there thought about various ways that the TBRC could expand its mission, find new projects, and it was determined almost unanimously that yes, TBRC had done an amazing job for Tibetan Buddhism, and that there were other traditions of Buddhist studies and other literary traditions and cultural traditions of Buddhism that needed or deserved the TBRC treatment. That is to say that there were other literary traditions, living traditions of Buddhism that had large libraries of texts and living masters but that the texts, at least, were in quite a fragile or endangered state, and that they could be greatly benefited by digitization and greater online access. And so the leader of TBRC at the time, my predecessor, Jeff Wallman, embraced this challenge, one could say, and the name of the organization was changed to Buddhist Digital Resource Center in order to better reflect its now universal or ecumenical mission. And the organization did not waste any time in getting started on projects outside of the Tibetan sphere. And at present, we have several digitization projects in Asia. And so I'd like to tell you a little bit about those before moving on to discuss the new website. So like I said, we have several digitization projects in Asia currently. Burmese and Pali palm leaf manuscripts in the Burmese script. This is the Fragile Palm Leaves Foundation Library in Bangkok. We have digitized 5,000 bundles of their works already that are online for free access. Then we have also been engaging in a large project in Cambodia to digitize Khmer and Pali palm leaf manuscripts in the Khmer script. And then we have been busy at work scanning Tibetan texts at the National Library of Mongolia in Ulaanbaatar. So if you'll indulge me for a few more minutes in talking about the organization, I'd like to introduce these three projects individually. So the first of Bdrc's non-Tibetan projects was this multi-year effort to digitize the Burmese texts that are part of Dr. Peter Skilling's Fragile Palm Leaves Foundation archive. And so there are 11,000 bundles of Burmese texts in this irreplaceable and precious library. And at present, we've digitized approximately 5,000 of the bundles in high resolution, full color scans. This work is very laborious. Each and every page of the palm leaf manuscripts needs to be washed, oiled, and re-inked before they can be photographed. So we have two teams at work on this. A cleaning team that prepares the texts page by page. It's very painstaking. And then a parallel team that does the digitization, as you can see here, page by page, just to give you a sense of how it works. So there's a flat surface. The folia are laid down on that screen one by one. There's a digital camera on a crane directly above it, and then lights to the left and right, side by side. And then the operator very, very carefully takes pictures one by one. And so again, we have digitized over 5,000 of these bundles. We're about halfway through, and already scholars from around the world and monks in Burma are writing to us, in Myanmar, are writing to us and letting us know how helpful this collection is. And for those of you that work on Southeast Asian texts and Burmese in particular, don't worry, I'll give you the link shortly so that you can access these yourself. And I must say that the donor for this project is the Kensei Foundation, and we're so grateful to them for all they do for Bdrc and for Dr. Peter Skilling. Then Bdrc is really taking Southeast Asia very seriously. When we expanded our mission, we had to think about which living Buddhist traditions could most benefit from working with us. And we decided that several of the Southeast Asian traditions were excellent candidates for major digitization projects. And fortunately, I was able to convince the very generous a Khmer Buddhist Foundation of California to support a large endeavor in Cambodia to digitize Khmer manuscripts. We just a few months ago finished up with the digitization work, and I'm very happy to report that we digitized over 2 million folia of palm leaf manuscripts. Conservatively, we estimate that this project, conducted by Bdrc, but in collaboration with many, many stakeholders on the ground and funded by a Khmer Buddhist Foundation, that we were able to digitize, preserve perhaps over 85% of the known extant manuscripts in Cambodia. Now, there might be large numbers of texts that have not yet been documented and that people don't know about yet, but in terms of the texts that are known and accessible, we feel that we were able to reach over 85% of them. So that's a huge benefit to Khmer Buddhism, Cambodian Buddhism, and to the Dharma and Buddhist studies globally. And the way this worked is that we set up a workshop in Phnom Penh with state-of-the-art equipment, photographic equipment and computers for image processing. And then we would go into the countryside to borrow texts from temples and monasteries. We would bring fruit and offerings and establish trust with the monks, borrow the texts, digitize them, and then bring them back. We never bought or otherwise extracted texts from the temples or from the country. If you come to our offices, we don't have a single Khmer text on site. And when we would return the texts, we often brought with them equipment such as needed equipment and furniture, such as new bookcases and cloth, strings, and other materials that are needed for the ongoing maintenance and conservation of the texts. So here is one of the staff members digitizing the hundreds of thousands of pages that we digitized one by one, and then that's the team of individuals who were working on the image processing and cataloging of the texts. Most of the works that we digitized in Cambodia were palm leaf manuscripts, but we also digitized texts that represent some of the other media and materials that are used for Khmer manuscripts. This is a paper leporello or concertina, accordion fold text that is richly illustrated. These are rare and certainly at risk from fire, flood, and the black market, or sometimes just neglect. And it's really important that they be digitized while there are still living masters who can help explain them and teach them to the next generation. All right, and then moving on quickly to our other major current project. This is scanning the Tibetan collection of the National Library of Mongolia in Ulaanbaatar. We are working on this in collaboration with the Asian Legacy Library, and this project is also supported largely by the Kensei Foundation. So the National Library of Mongolia in Ulaanbaatar has approximately 40,000 volumes of Tibetan language texts, in addition to their other major collections in Mongolian, Chinese, and other languages. The texts in the past were in conditions like this, in piles, more or less in the same state that they were in when they were first deposited in the library during the Soviet period, but the director of the library and the Ministry of Culture in Ulaanbaatar, not to mention the monks, the lamas and the Buddhists of Mongolia, were very keen on preserving their texts, and we're happy to be working with them on a major digitization project. We've digitized over 4,000 volumes so far. It's just a drop in the bucket, but we really hope that we will have the resources to carry it out to the end. So you can see here our very state-of-the-art digitization station. We have 4 digitization stations, 4 different cameras and lights set up, going Monday through Friday, almost every day of the work week. They have only had to shut down temporarily a few times because of the pandemic. And so this is a very productive project. I'm sure that those of you in the audience who are textual scholars understand that all 3 of these projects are uncovering and documenting and making available really important classics of Buddhism, but also unknown works, texts that were thought to have been lost or maybe are very obscure, but have great research value and also value for the Dharma community overall. We believe that for the Dharma to grow, it needs, constant inputs both from the modern world, but also inputs coming from the past, from within the literary tradition. There are older works that have timeless wisdom that maybe were forgotten or not so popular for many centuries, but now with the changing social and cultural circumstances, old wisdom, can take on new meanings. But it can only do that if if all of the texts are preserved and made conveniently and freely available. So before moving on, I'll just lastly say that Bdrc, is completely devoted to both the tradition, the Buddhist tradition, and also the scholarly institutions. And so in order to benefit both of those camps, and there's a lot of overlap between them, everything we digitize is put into the public domain and is made available for free and open access. We don't have a paywall, we don't charge subscription fees, and we want it all to be available just as it was made available to us out of the generosity of the traditional communities of use. And so again, we are grateful to the people who have been supporting us to do this work, and projects like Mongolia in particular, could benefit from increased support. All right, so I showed you a picture earlier of the texts in piles and bundles. Well, after the project that we're participating in makes its way through the text, they are cleaned up, cataloged, entered into the directory, and then put on the shelves in ways that will allow the text to stay fresh and safe for many more centuries, we hope. All right, so I'm going to move on now to talk about our new website, but briefly let me see this. Okay, I just wanted to check the chat box and see if there were any pressing questions. But if not, I will just continue on. So now let's talk about Bdrc's website. So I've begun by telling you about our organization, and I've told you about our textual preservation work, which many people think is a great help to Buddhism and to Buddhist studies. And now I would like to move from the preservation work to the access work. Bdrc, tries to help both the tradition and scholars And we also try to work in terms of both preservation and also access. There are many projects who are good at preservation, but don't have the mechanisms for disseminating their works widely and freely. Bdrc has been fortunate in having good technical support so that we can have a powerful website that serves the world. Our new website is called Buddha, B-U-D-A, and that's an acronym for Buddhist Digital Archives. And the development of the website was funded by a very generous multi-year grant from the Robert H. and Ho Family Foundation under a grant called the Sanskrit and Chinese Buddhist Library Network. And the tangible result of this grant, which ran from 2017 to 2021, essentially, the tangible output is Buddha, the Buddhist Digital Archive. The development of Buddhist Digital Archives was done in collaboration with Zhejiang University, in particular the Buddhist Research and Resource Center at Zheda, which is headed by Bdrc board member, Professor He Huanhuan, who's a great friend of Bdrc and a fantastic scholar who helped so much in the development of Buddhist Digital Archives. I'm not sure if she's attending the talk today, but at any rate, I wanted to express my gratitude to the Ho Family Foundation and also to Zheda. All right, so the main site of the new website is library.bdrc.io. And there is also a mirror site at Zhejiang University for those on the mainland who perhaps don't have easy access to library.bdrc.io. At the mirror site, you can find it at buddha.zju.edu.cn. But today I'll be demoing library.bdrc.io. There's only slight differences between the two, but I believe that most people attending the talk can access the main site. All right, so what is it about the site? What makes it new and special? So it's a connected platform for collaboration and sustainability. And there's so much to say, but we have limited time. So I'll just point out two new features that are innovative and are really the future for the digital humanities. The first is linked open data. Linked open data is a new data standard that essentially is a shared vocabulary or a shared ontology that is used collaboratively by people in the same field of study. And so for Buddhist studies, what this means is that we are encouraging all of the major digital humanities projects in Buddhist studies to unite themselves around a shared data vocabulary so that the silos can be broken down and data can be shared more freely back and forth. And so that may sound a little bit abstract to some of you now, but I'll demonstrate how that works in practice in just a moment. And then apart from the data architecture, the new kind of interfaces and applications that we're using include the IIIF exchange of images and data. You see here IIIF, it stands for International Image Interoperability Framework. And that too sounds very complicated and technical, but it has extremely practical application that I'll be demonstrating soon. But essentially what it does is both of these together allow Bdrc and other major online collections of Buddhist materials to share their data seamlessly. Why are we able to share seamlessly? It's because all of us have united around a common vocabulary or ontology for our data. And we have also united around shared image viewers and media viewers, so that images from Bdrc can be shown seamlessly within the image viewers and database of the British Library, just to give an example, and vice versa. And so this allows individual collections to really expand their offerings by sharing and collaborating with partner institutions. And that's why we call the new site Buddhist Digital Archives, because we wanted to emphasize the fact that in many ways it's a open, decentralized, connected platform, rather than simply the proprietary library of Bdrc's collection. It's a shared library with text coming from multiple resources and institutions. And so you may be asking yourselves, well, who are you collaborating with, Jann? We've never heard of this type of group work before. Here is a brief list. It's not exhaustive, but we have, for instance, here in the lower right-hand corner, Cambridge Digital Library. They're making all of their digital Sanskrit texts available through IIIF. So we currently have 180 Buddhist Sanskrit manuscripts fully integrated into our database, coming from Cambridge Digital Library, which is the digital wing of Cambridge University's library. Then we have, for instance, just above that, the Waddell collection of Tibetan texts coming from the Stabi. The Stabi is the State Library of Berlin. Then looking up to the top icon here in the middle column, the von Manen collection, that's at the Asian Library at Leiden. They have 1,500 scans of Tibetan texts that they collected over 100 years ago, and they recently digitized, and they made available through linked open data, and now we've integrated it into our website. Then we have, as you see here, 3,000 Tibetan and Sanskrit volumes coming from the British Library, in particular the Endangered Archives Program. And then we share data with a lot of these other organizations, such as 84,000 Wikidata, Gretel, and so forth. All right, so now let's move on to the website itself. So to do that, I have to go here. I guess I was already there. All right. So I'm still sharing my screen, I believe. Great. Okay, so this is the interface, and there are a couple of things to point out. The first is that the website is completely open for searching and viewing of texts by anyone. But in order to download texts, you need to register, and registration is free and easy. We don't collect any personal information, and you can use your Google or Apple or even Baidu accounts to register. That makes it really easy. You won't need to create a new username and password if you do it that way. Okay, and then the website is relatively intuitive, although it is a little bit complex. And one of the things that users will notice when they first begin using it is that unlike with, say, the previous Bdrc website, on Buddha, you search via filters. So you can't search across all data all at once, just because our database is too complicated, and to search across all of it at once, it just doesn't make sense given the ways that we have special search results for different types of data. So you have to specify what you're searching for, and then furthermore, you need to specify the language, because this is a multi-language database, and sometimes there are similarities, striking similarities between different languages. And so to make sure that you're searching on exactly what you want, we ask you to specify the language. You'll see how it works. So there's several search filters: e-texts, persons, places, topics, collections, and then works and versions. Let's go to collections first. So we have multiple collections within the broader collection. There's the Cambridge University Digital Library, there's the Waddell collection, there's the British Library, and so on and so forth. But most of the works that I'm going to be demonstrating in great detail today come from the fields that I'm most familiar with, Tibetan and Chinese. But as you've seen, Bdrc also has really important collections of Southeast Asian literary heritage. And so for those of you that don't work in Chinese or Tibetan or Sanskrit and are super curious to start looking into our Burmese and Southeast Asian works, such as the Khmer, let me show you how you can access those. So you would go down to collections, and then if you want the Fragile Palm Leaf Manuscript project, just type in fragile or fragile palm leaves, but fragile should be enough. English, click, and here you go, Fragile Palm Leaves Project Collection. You click there, and it takes a little while to load because there are so many texts being called up all at once. You have a little description of the collection and then the related resources. So from here, you can see more or just click on one of the texts and go right to the images. And from here, it opens up the IIIF image viewer. And if you click on the scan itself, it'll open up the full image viewer. And then, so this is the Fragile Palm Leaves. But for those of you that are interested perhaps in the Khmer collection, you can type Khmer English, because this is the English title of the collection, Khmer Manuscript Heritage Project. Click there and you can see those texts. All right. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. New search. I meant to click new search. Okay, so there's so much to talk about with you today, but because I'm speaking to scholars at the Hong Kong University, let's begin with Bdrc's Chinese collections. So you may not know that Bdrc now has 4 or more editions of the Dazangjing, the Chinese canon, Buddhist canon. And we've done a really interesting job with them. So let me show you now, again, under collections or even versions. Let's go here, versions, and we type in Taisho, Tripitaka, English. All right, the Taisho Tripitaka. Click on this, and so our first foray into the Chinese canon was the Taisho Tripitaka, because that's so widely used by scholars, at least for their initial bibliographic work into the Chinese canon. And so Bdrc did not have its own set of this, and we didn't think it was necessary to scan it ourselves. There are 2 major, very mature websites that feature the Chinese canon. I'm thinking of SAT out of the University of Tokyo, and then of course CBeta. And so we worked closely with scholars at both organizations to access via linked open data and IIIF, the 2 technologies I mentioned earlier, to access all of their data, their metadata and their data. So let me show you how it works. You go here to Taisho Tripitaka, and you see that we have the scans, and it tells you the name of it. And if you scroll down, you see the outline, and you can search in the outline. So this is the full contents of the collection in 100 volumes or more. And you can see we have the Fa Hua Bu, the Huayan Bu. It's the full canon. Okay, let's see. Huayan. The Lotus Sutra. All right. So we can open up this node, volume 9, open it up further, and you have all the collections. And so here we have all of the titles, and then these icons show you that we have a link directly to external resources, and this would be either CBeta or SAT. So if you want to see these texts on SAT or CBeta, because CBeta and SAT have extra research tools for studying the texts, you can go directly there. We help facilitate that. Or you can view the text directly on Bdrc itself. And so to do that, you would just click on the title one more time and view the scans. Let's click View Scans. And this will help me explain how IIIF works. So these images are not on the Bdrc servers. These images are being served up live from SAT, from the University of Tokyo's servers. The interface is seamlessly within Bdrc, but the images are coming from a partner external resource. University of Tokyo gets the web traffic, but Bdrc's users get to view it. And Bdrc, so this is really useful. You might have not known that it works this way. And then additionally, what I want to say is that Bdrc here is not just passively linking out to other sites, but in fact, we put a lot of effort into integrating these catalogs of the Chinese canon into our own database of Tibetan and Sanskrit works. So maybe I was moving too fast. Let me show you what I did. So you can view scans, open the record, and then it says version of work. So what this means is that this particular text is a version of the overall work, the Miao, Miaofa Lianhua Jing. Click on that, and it takes you to a record that is an umbrella for all of the Bdrc resources that are related to the Miaofa Lianhua Jing. So again, this text, of course, it's in Chinese. We have 2 versions on our website currently that have been fully cataloged. The Tripitaka Koreana and then the Taisho. Okay, so that's good. You can look at the different catalogs. We have the Song and the Qianlong editions coming online very soon. I tried to have them ready for today's presentation. They weren't. All right, but then as I mentioned, Bdrc isn't just passively sending you to SAT or just taking on other people's data without doing anything with it. No, we have gone through and tried to integrate it at a very deep level with Bdrc's other materials. And so you'll see that you have the title of the Chinese original, and then it says here, parallels in. So what it means is that this text has parallels in Tibetan, in Chinese, and also in Sanskrit. Now, parallel, that's an interesting word. We could have said equivalent, but equivalent is too strong of a word, right? There are differences, but still, they're more or less the same. And so following other precedents, we've decided to call the related texts in other translations or languages parallels. So for those of you that work in both Chinese and Tibetan, you might be interested in reading the Tibetan equivalent of this, or at least knowing what it's called and the bibliographic information for your research. So if you click there, it'll take you to the record for the Lotus Sutra in Tibetan. And of course, Bdrc has, so many copies of the Tibetan canon. Each of them contain the Lotus Sutra. And so with just one click, you are served up with 16 different canonical versions of the Lotus Sutra in Tibetan. And here you have all of them. This is from the Nartang Kangyur, the Pedurma, the Dege, Derge again, Tok Potrong from Ladakh, Chone, Kangyur, Ragya, and so on and so forth. 16 different versions. And so this is how Bdrc has gone from being just TBRC to really Bdrc, Buddhist Digital Resource Center, that fully embraces the entirety of the Buddhist tradition and is doing innovative things to work with partner organizations and also to advance research into the canonical literature, but also extra canonical literature. And so here's the Tibetan record for the Lotus Sutra, the Tambecha Pema Karpo Shejawa Tekpa Chembu Do. And then from here, you also see parallels into the Chinese, which we already saw, and then also the Sanskrit. So now we can click on the Sanskrit, because you might be thinking, oh, does Bdrc also have Sanskrit versions of this? And the answer is we do. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a quick sip of water. So as for the Sanskrit, Bdrc itself has not scanned any copies of it because we didn't need to. Bdrc has, we have to conserve our resources and prioritize the neediest projects. Well, we didn't need to go and scan Sanskrit works because so many have been, carefully preserved and digitized by major libraries. So here you see we have 10 different copies of the Saddharma Pundarika Sutra coming from the British Library. This is University of Tokyo, Cambridge, University of Tokyo again, Cambridge, and so on. And then when you click on these, you'll see how it's all very integrated. Here you see Saddharma Pundarika Sutra, and it's coming from the British Library. We always give full attribution to our partner libraries. And so you get metadata and this. So the images are coming from the British Library as well as the metadata. Saddharma Pundarika Sutra, that's coming from their site. This information about the script and the dimensions of the text, this information is all coming automatically through the linked open data sharing. And then you can see the scans. And if you go to the work, the way to understand work is that it's the umbrella record. It's the abstract notion of the text that can serve as a hub for all of the related resources in the same language and then in the parallels. So I hope that's enough of an introduction right now for what Bdrc has been able to do using our new technologies and our partners like Zhejiang University and the major libraries such as British Library, State Library of Berlin, and so on. Now, I'm just going to take a few more minutes to show a couple of other key features. So you've seen how texts work here, more or less. Now let me show you what we've done with e-texts. So Bdrc now has e-texts for over 4,000 volumes of Tibetan works. And how did we get our 4,000 volumes of e-texts? Well, again, it was done through partnerships and advanced technology. Bdrc is very close with Google, and Google has a very good OCR engine for Tibetan. OCR stands for optical character recognition. Optical character recognition is a type of computer vision, which is aided by artificial intelligence. And what OCR does is to take an image, identify all of the text in terms of the language and the script, and then it extracts the text from within the image and turns it into a text file. So we took 4,000 volumes of our Tibetan texts and with a generous sort of coupon from Google, we ran these 4,000 volumes through Google's commercial OCR service and generated a large corpus. It worked. Google was very excited with what we were able to do with the output, and because they wanted to reward our work in using their technologies and pushing it forward, we now have a partnership with Google Books to upload the entirety of Bdrc's Tibetan library, which amounts to over 25,000 volumes. We're going to upload all of it to Google Books and run OCR against all of it, and then make it available online for searching. And so there's something special about Bdrc's OCR, or rather, there's something special about Bdrc's e-texts, and it has to do with the fact that the e-texts were generated via OCR. So let me show you how this works. You search on e-text and you go to Tibetan, and you can say, oh yeah, here's something I was searching on earlier. Wangchuk Lutok Dremba. This is a phrase from the Surya Lekha it's the letter to a friend by Nagarjuna. So there are 59 results on this phrase when you search on e-text. 59 results, and you can see all of them here. That's great. You can see how it gives you some context. You can expand the context looking at the e-text, and it'll give you all three pages worth. So you can really read it, but then you might determine, okay, yeah, this is the text I'm looking for. I want to open the full e-text. Open the full e-text. And here's the phrase I was looking at. And so this material, our e-texts were generated by OCR, as I mentioned. Well, Google OCR is very good, but it's not flawless. It's not 100% perfect. So sometimes you'll see it, a typo or just something that looks strange, and you don't know, is this a typo? Is this correct? What's going on here? So what we're able to offer you very conveniently is to see the images, the original image of the page and the e-text side by side, page by page. This is really great for research. So here's the text, the OCR, e-text, easy to search, and then here is the original. So you see here, it says, Shechung Le, Wangchuk Lutok Dremba Dershek Ki. Here we have Shechung Le, Wangchuk Lutok Dremba Dershek Ki. Perfect. And now some of you may be wondering, well, can you view the e-text in Tibetan? Of course. I'm sorry, I should have had it set in Tibetan Unicode, and there you go. So in brief, we offer this, a page-by-page pairing of 4,000 volumes of Tibetan text and e-text for full viewing. And then additionally, the e-text can be downloaded. You just click here, download e-text, and the whole thing will download to your computer. Not the images, but the e-text. But if you want the images, you can just click there, and then you get the images for the work, which can also be opened and downloaded on their own. And then furthermore, from within the images, you can open up the e-text. It's really wonderful. We're super proud of this. So here you see 1922. Those of you who don't know Tibetan, Chilo 1922 lore. Wonderful. Okay, and I want to save time for Q&A. My gosh, there's so much here, but I hope that you have seen a lot so far. I just want to say that the Bdrc database has an extensive person database, place database. The person is pretty self-explanatory. What's great about the place database is that we have geographic data for a lot of the our monasteries and records. So if you search, for instance, on Sakya-gun, Sakya Monastery is, you know, such an important monastery, but there's actually numerous monasteries in Tibet that are called Sakya-gun. And so when you search on a place, I searched on Sakya-gun, okay? Well, there are how many? We have 17 results that are relevant. And look at what we're able to do. We're able to plot the records on a map. And so this is great because you might think, okay, I want Sakya-gun, but I want the one in China. Or no, yes, we're here. So then you click there. Oh, this is the Bdrc. Oh no, that's not the one I want. Okay, then I want the one, what's this one? Oh, this is Purong Sakya-gun. Okay, nope. This is Dege Sakya-gun. Or this is, I think, Litang Sakya-gun. Right, isn't that helpful? And so if there's, you know, if you're searching on, say, a very popular name of a monastery for which we have lots of results, you can easily find what you're looking for. Or you might even think, oh, interesting, it looks like there's a Sakya monastery in Bhutan. Wow, what's that called? Oh, Kitsael-gun, all right. And then Sakya Gumpa. This is the main one. Oh, I see, this is the one I want. So you click on Sakya Gumpa, and again, it opens up a map to show you the exact location of the single monastery you're searching on, and you get all of the data, Sakya Gunchen, the Chinese translation of the title. It's located in Sakya Dzong. It contains all these temples. We have records for each of these important facts, and then related resources, works about Sakya Gumpa. So if you want to do research on historical works about Sakya Gumpa, you see them here. If you want to look at texts that were printed at Sakya Gumpa, you click that. Or if you want, you know, everything related to Sakya Gumpa, you press that, and then you will open up, you know, a large number of results. And then you can use the search filters on the side to zero in on what you're looking for. There's a lot here, but I would like to leave time for Q&A. So I would let the professors know that I'm available for an in-class seminar. If you want to do a more intensive research-based demonstration of the text, just let me know, and I'm happy to join one of your classes anytime. But for now, perhaps I'll stop sharing my screen and use the remaining a few minutes for Q&A. Thank you, Professor Samoratne,
yes,
for giving me this time.
Thank you, Jann Ronis. So I think there are 3 questions already in, and can you check the chat page?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
at the bottom,
chat,
I think some of
I
them,
see.
I think already you answered in some ways, I guess, yeah.
Okay, search in persons and topics. So I did that e-text. And great. Okay, so I can answer the last one. We don't incorporate the ACIP texts because ACIP uses a different transcription than we use, than the Wiley. But the main reason is that when we transitioned to Buddha, we decided to only use the text with the OCR, because that way we can limit it to the texts for which we have the images, because that's our new feature. But the ACIP texts are fantastic. We just haven't integrated them. There's nothing stopping us from doing that. Perhaps in the future we will. But I would say that there is the problem with the different transcription method that they use. However, if we converted it to Tibetan Unicode, then it could be done. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you for your interest. There's so many people here.
Yeah, earlier actually, yeah, more than this, now 69. But,
Yeah. Okay, this is a great
70, or closer to 80.
Okay, this is a good question. So let me show you how it works. Let me share my screen one more time, if that would be all right. I'm answering the question about citation. Citation is important, as you know. Scholars must cite their works, otherwise we'll get in big trouble. So we have a really cool way to generate a citation. So I'm sharing my screen again. And so here's the Gyut Lame Namshe Ngedun Rabsel Nangwa. So I'll just click here. I clicked it simply because I wanted to show you how it can be searched. Oh, this is not a good example. So let me go back. Excuse me. Let me find a text that was published. Well, anyways, this should be good enough. So Bdrc, for all of its texts, you'll see here, it says cite this item. And so doing that pops up this very handy little, botlet. And so you can generate a citation for Modern Language Association, Chicago Manual of Style, or the APA, American Psychological Association. I don't think that's very relevant for Buddhist studies, but MLA and Chicago are. And your citation can be in either transliteration or the original script, like say for Tibetan. This is a Tibetan book. Lama Dampa Sonam Gyaltsen is the author, Chunjuk Namshe Gomba Ngebar Selwa, and it was published by Ngawang Topge in 1973. And then you see here to Bdrc with the permalink, PURL, that stands for permanent URL.bdrc.io, and then it gives the work record. And so you can copy that to the clipboard. So I hope that answers your question. We have this for all texts. Yes, we have that for all texts. So you can explore it on your own.
Yeah, there is another question.
How about images of old
two
temples?
questions. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yes, okay, so that's wonderful. So let me share my screen again. I'm looking at the question about IIIF. So for IIIF, one thing I want to say is that IIIF is a two-way street. Bdrc uses it to bring on thousands of volumes from all these other libraries. And Leiden University. Those of you who do Tibetan studies, for instance, probably didn't know that Leiden University had 1,500 scans of Tibetan texts on their library. Their library, in a way, is sort of siloed. In order to search those texts prior to Buddha, you would have to go all the way to their site and to search on it. Most people didn't even know that they had released their works online. But now, and the same is true of the State Library of Berlin. Maybe even the British Library. But what Buddha is able to do as a central hub is to allow for searching across multiple resources from one single search box. And you're not only searching across the multiple resources, but you're also able to view the data within Buddha, within just a single interface. And so again, it's a two-way street. We are able to harvest a lot of data through IIIF, but we also make all of our data available for others. And we're working with a few monasteries so that they can create their own digital libraries that feature their own collections, their own traditions. But again, let me share my screen, so that this person can get an answer to his or her question. If you go to the image viewer, actually, let me not do that. Scans, you'll see here, where is the JSON information? Okay, I think it's here, sorry. So the metadata is available Where did it go? Oh, it's available here. Okay, so then when you click on the image, then you see, you know, all the thumbnails to help you scroll through, and then the eye. When you see this eye information, this is where you get all the metadata. So the IIIF manifest is right here for you, and then you can also download the text, download as PDF or download as images. So this IIIF manifest will give you the information you need. It's Creative Commons, public domain. So that's how it works. You can also get metadata, I believe, from here. Download, this is download the export metadata as TTL or export metadata as JSON. And JSON, I think, is the linked data standard, and here it is. And then furthermore, if you would like to see our ontology and discuss more with our technical lead about linked data, please get in touch with me. And then now there's a question about images of old temples. So unfortunately, Bdrc is not going to be branching out into art or photographs, archival photographs of architecture and monuments and persons. We just don't have the bandwidth for that. There are other people who specialize in that. Maybe, you know, in 4 or 5 years, we can begin to branch out into art and photographic archives, but for now we won't be doing that. But thank you for asking. Then I see this question: would there be an extended search into the Pali Tripitaka? Bdrc is going to be partnering with University of Sydney. University of Sydney has fantastic images of a Burmese Tripitaka. It was done about 100 years ago, carved into stone slabs, and each slab is in its own little roofed temple, all outdoors. They made very high resolution, very legible, good quality images for each of those, and they're going to be using Bdrc, Buddha, as their platform for making those available. And then eventually we would be very happy to have a searchable Pali Romanized e-text. And if you'd like to speak with us about how Bdrc could acquire or license such a data set, I'd be very happy to learn about that. Right now, we're just working on Pali images, but Pali and Burmese and Khmer vernacular images, but in the future, it would be good to work on Southeast Asian e-text as well. And it says, would your group proofread the OCR from Google? Thank you. Thank you for asking that. The Google OCR is not flawless, it's not perfect, but it is very good for research purposes. It helps you find the images. It helps you find and search within texts. So, and then we allow you to then go from the e-text to the original, because the research should always be done on the original. So we see our e-text not as sort of the final version, but merely as a discovery tool. But it's also very good for doing research into variant spellings or statistical investigations into the occurrence of certain words and phrases. But now, as for proofreading, we would be very happy to work with someone who could come up with an AI language model that would allow for semi-automated editing of the texts. We know exactly what needs to be done. We just don't have the manpower right now to do it. But a very, very basic AI natural language processing could easily be developed and trained and applied to all of the e-texts, and that would be wonderful. And we know we'll do it within the next couple of years. And if someone would like to help with that, please get in touch. So let's see what else it says. Does Bdrc link to any visual resources? So I think I've answered that question. And then here, not a question, just a comment to show my appreciation. I'm currently pursuing PhD in Tibetan Buddhism at HKU, and it's no exaggeration to say that without this amazing resource, my research simply would not have been possible. Thank you. And all of that. You know what? So I want to say that you and I are in the same boat. I began graduate school in 1998, and I remember it was maybe spring of 99 in my first year, or maybe fall of 99, but very early on in graduate school. I showed up at a graduate seminar for my Tibetan Buddhism course with Professor David Germano, and he came to the seminar room directly from the mail room. He had just been to pick up his mail, and he received in the mail a package from Gene Smith. And in the package, there was a CD. And the CD contained the very first scans that Dbrc had made. Basically, it was a sampler disc. And at that time, Gene wasn't sure exactly what the potential was for his project, but he wanted to show other scholars what he was thinking about. So he scanned several Tibetan volumes, the amount that would fit onto a single CD, and then he made maybe 20 or 30 copies, and he sent them to all the professors that he knew in Europe and North America. And he said, "This is what I'm trying to do. I'm founding an organization to do this at a large scale. What do you think?" And so my professor told us all, "Oh, wow, Gene Smith, he's a legend. And now he's living in the United States. Apparently, he has plans to scan his texts. This is really neat." So I told the professor, "Can I borrow that?" I had my computer with me. So I borrowed the text. He reached across the table, gave it to me. I immediately popped it into my computer, saved it to my hard drive. My Tibetan back then was at the beginner level. I could barely read the works, but I thought it was really special that I had some texts on my computer, and then, fast forward a couple of years, and I could, like you, the person who wrote this kind comment, I stayed in Tibetan Buddhism because Dbrc was making so many texts conveniently available. Without that, I might have drifted off and done Chinese Buddhism instead, or I might have decided to learn Sanskrit. But because there was, more and more digital Tibetan texts coming online through Dbrc in the early 2000s, I thought that was just very exciting, and that it showed a lot of promise. And so I just deepened my studies of Tibetan Buddhism. And now, 20 years later, here I am working at Bdrc. Wow, full circle. So I know exactly how this graduate student feels. Yes, Gene and Dbrc has really made possible so many great discoveries in Buddhism, and it's also facilitated so much textual preservation and the survival of the living tradition of Buddhism as well. It's not just great for scholars, it's good for everybody who wants to deal with the text, whether for their faith or for their research. And then just lastly, there's a question about Dunhuang. So we would be very happy to integrate Dunhuang texts. And in fact, we're just waiting on the British Library to upgrade their system. The IDP, International Dunhuang Project, doesn't use linked open data standards at present, but they have the intention to upgrade to that. And once they do, I believe that at least the British Library images and the French Bibliothèque Nationale images will be available freely through linked data and IIIF, and we can, at that point, harvest them, bring them into Bdrc, and try to integrate them as much as we can into the broader database. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Okay, that's, I think, good enough now. Thank you, Dr. Jann Ronis, for your wonderful lecture today. And we really appreciate your presenting this Bdrc and also new library. And so it's very useful for all the scholars in Buddhist studies and students in Buddhist studies and various other fields, I guess. So you have been, I think, contributing greatly for this area. And we, as people in the Buddhist studies, we really appreciate what you have been doing. And I think today we had a very large crowd here present and showing here as participant, but also there were another group maybe somewhere who are not showing here. So that means we had a big, larger crowd here. And I'm sure that they all enjoyed your presentation. And we are very thankful. And only problem is that this is a Zoom online lecture. So you could not really meet our people. And so maybe one day you will be again visit the HKU and University of Hong Kong for maybe a seminar or a lecture series. So I'm again greatly thankful on behalf of our center and its director and also the faculty and also the staff and students. So we will see you again and have a good night. I think now you're very late in the evening, night. So good night and thank you for today. And we greatly appreciate. Okay.
Thank you, Professor Samradne. And I'd be happy to keep talking, but I feel I am getting tired, so I might say something stupid if we stay on. And I know that you all are busy, have a busy day ahead of you and a busy week. So thank you very much to you, Professor Samradne, Amy for her facilitations, to Professor Halkias, if he's here. I know I met him in 2003 at Oxford. I'm only partly Greek, but I know we have that connection. And then also to the Ho Foundation, based there in Hong Kong, for their support. We would not have been able to develop Buddha without them. And again, be in touch if you have a kind of a general question about Bdrc and the functioning of it. Please write to help@bdrc.io. I will look at that. I'll try to answer as soon as I can, but other people will also be looking at that email. If you want to write to me directly about some ideas you have for collaboration or whatnot, please write to me at jan@bdrc.io, and we'll get to your email as soon as I can. But it was lovely speaking with you all. I hope that we can talk again, either by Zoom or in person. Call on me whenever you need. This was very enjoyable, and please have a good experience with Buddha. We'll be in touch. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, Dr. Ronis. Thank you, Professor Samradne. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.